Man, in the moment of his awakening to the imaginative life, must meet the test of sonship. Father, reveal thy Son in me, James Montgomery. And it pleased God to reveal his Son in me, Galatians. The supreme test of sonship is the forgiveness of sin. The test that your imagination is Christ Jesus, the Son of God, is your ability to forgive sin. Sin means missing one's mark in life, falling short of one's ideal, failing to achieve one's aim. Forgiveness means identification of man with his ideal or aim in life. This is the work of awakened imagination, the supreme work, for it tests man's ability to enter into and partake of the nature of his opposite. Let's see what does Neville mean. So the supreme test of sonship is the forgiveness of sin. Neville says, the ultimate proof that you are a son of God, that you have awakened to your true divine nature, is your ability to forgive sin. Forgiveness is not about moral superiority or pretending to forget someone's wrongdoing. Forgiveness, in Neville's term, is creative and powerful. It means, can you see someone on yourself not as the failure they seem to be, but as their true, fulfilled self? Can you imagine them or yourself hitting the mark, becoming who they really want to be? If you can, you're acting as Christ, because only Christ, which is the awakened imagination, has the power to do that. Sin means missing one's mark in life, falling short of one's ideal, failing to achieve one's aim. Neville's definition of sin is practical, not religious. Sin isn't about breaking religious laws. Sin simply means falling short of the life you desire. You sin whenever you fail to live your highest ideal, so when you miss your aim. Example, you want to be prosperous, but you're stuck in poverty. That's missing your mark, equals sin. You want to be confident, but you live in fear. Again, missing your mark, it's sin. Forgiveness means identification of man with his ideal or aim in life. Real forgiveness equals bringing man and his ideal together through imagination. Not by talking about it, but by seeing it done inside you, by feeling it real. Forgiveness then is an act of imaginative identification. You see someone or yourself as already being what they desire to be. You don't hold them to their past failures, you mentally lift them into the fulfilled state. This is the work of awakened imagination, the supreme work. Neville says, the greatest power you have as an awakened being is the creative power to forgive, which means to imagine someone anew, not chained to their mistakes or shortcomings. This is why forgiveness is not emotional, it is creative. You're not trying to feel better about someone, you're using your imagination to lift them into a new reality. And for it tests man's ability to enter into and partake of the nature of his opposite. When you forgive, you are invited to enter into the state you seem not to see. Example, someone is sick, you're asked to imagine them healthy. Someone is bitter, you're asked to imagine them joyful. You yourself feel poor, you're asked to imagine yourself wealthy and fulfilled. This is the real test. Can you see health where there seems to be sickness? Can you see success where there seems to be failure? If you can, you are behaving exactly like Christ, because you're seeing through the outer to the truth and creating it through faith in imagination. A very simple example. So you see a man who is homeless. If you only see him as homeless man, you're living in sin, missing the higher truth. If you can imagine him safe, secure, prosperous, and feel this as real for him, you are forgiving his sin and yours. You are acting as Christ, as the creative power of God. So Neville is teaching us that forgiveness is creation. It's not about forgetting, it's about transforming reality through imagination. Father, forgive men, for they know not what they do. Means, I will not hold anyone to the blindness of the senses. I will lift them in imagination into what they truly are. And in doing that, you prove that Christ lives in you. And Christ is the power and the wisdom of God. Let the weak man say, I am strong. Joel 3:10. Reasonably, this is impossible. Only awakened imagination can enter into and partake of the nature of its opposite. This conception of Christ Jesus as human imagination raises these fundamental questions. Is imagination a power sufficient not merely to enable me to assume that I am strong, but is it also of itself capable of executing the idea? Suppose that I desire to be in some other place or situation. Could I, by imagining myself into such a state and place, bring about their physical realization? Suppose I could not afford the journey, and suppose my present social and financial status oppose the idea that I want to realize. Would imagination be sufficient of itself to incarnate these desires? Does imagination comprehend reason? By reason, I mean deductions from the observations of the senses. Does it recognize the external world of facts? In the practical way of everyday life, is imagination a complete guide to behavior? Suppose I am capable of acting with continuous imagination, that is, suppose I am capable of sustaining the feeling of my wish fulfilled, will my assumption harden into fact? And if it does harden into fact, shall I on reflection find that my actions through the period of incubation have been reasonable? Is my imagination a power sufficient not merely to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but is it also of itself capable of incarnating the idea? After assuming that I am already what I want to be, must I continually guide myself by reasonable ideas and action in order to bring about the fulfillment of my assumption? Experience has convinced me that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That continuous imagination is sufficient for all things, and all my reasonable plans and actions will never make up for my lack of continuous imagination. So, experience has convinced me that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Neville means it doesn't matter if what you imagine is false according to current facts. Reality responds not to what is true right now, but to what is believed, felt, and persisted in internally. If you continue to assume something, even if it's totally unrealistic by today's standards, it will externalize itself and become an actual fact in your world. Persistence of inner assumption is more powerful than current external facts. Example, you're broke, but you persist in assuming you're wealthy, relaxed, and abundant. Even though your assumption is false now, if you persist long enough, the outer world must rearrange to match it. And he continues that continuous imagination is sufficient for all things. So, consistent, steady inner imagining is all you truly need. You don't have to figure out how it will happen. You don't need to micromanage events with force. The act of continuously imagining yourself already in possession of what you desire is enough. It's not about one big dramatic session of imagination and then forgetting. It's about a quiet, persistent, continuous inner assumption that never really fades, even as you go about your day. And all my reasonable plans and actions will never make up for my lack of continuous imagination. You can make endless reasonable plans, hustle, strategize, overthink, work harder and harder, but if you're not living inwardly in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, if you're not continuously imagining yourself already there, then your plans are powerless. So, reasonable action without inner assumption equals struggle and limitation. Continuous imagination without plans, miracles, and effortless movements. And I can say I have experienced it. So, with continuous imagination, life will become different. Only hard work, hustle, struggle, randomness. Life reshapes itself naturally, automatically. So, we have continuous imagination will bring hard work, hustle, struggle, randomness. And we have seen that. Have you felt that in your life? And with continuous imagination, life reshapes itself naturally, automatically, often miraculously. So, your outer action can only reflect and serve your inner assumption. If your assumption is weak, confused, or absent, no matter how smart you are or how many plans you make, you will not succeed. But if your inner assumption is steady, alive, and dominant, even if you don't have the perfect plan, reality will rearrange itself for you. Suppose you want to become a successful YouTuber. You can plan endlessly what videos to make, what equipment to buy, how to edit, how to optimize, SEO, etc. But if you don't inwardly assume that you already are a successful, radiant YouTuber, all the planning will feel heavy, frustrating, and disconnected. If instead you quietly and continuously imagine yourself already having a thriving channel, loving the journey, then even small actions will seem inspired, natural, effortless, and results will come. So your deepest takeaway is persistence beats effort. Inner assumption creates outer effects, and continuous imagination is the true cause. Outer actions are only the effect.